I'm thrilled to welcome back to my videocast for the second time, Andrew Davis. Drew is a best-selling author, internationally acclaimed keynote speaker, and before launching and selling a thriving digital marketing agency, Andrew produced for NBC's Today Show, worked for the Muppets, and wrote for Charles Kuralt. He's appeared in the New York Times, Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, and on NBC and the BBC. Recognized as one of the industry's jaw-dropping marketing speakers, Andrew is as a mainstay on global marketing influencer lists. Wherever he goes, Andrew Davis puts his infectious enthusiasm and magnetic speaking style to good use, teaching business leaders how to grow their businesses, transform their cities, and leave their legacy. Today, I'm thrilled that Drew is joining me to talk about his most recent venture, his latest book, The Referable Speaker, which he co-authored with Michael Port. So get ready for a fun, entertaining, and informative interview that will change the way you go about preparing for the next speech you deliver. I'm joined by my friend this morning, Andrew Davis, who co-wrote this incredible book called The Referable Speaker, and he co-wrote it with someone else I know. I attended his workshops, and that would be Michael Port, the author of Book Yourself Solid, and Feel the Show. Yes, another great book as well. And I'm so honored to have Drew here. And what's fun is that I was showing him off air earlier. When I say I love a book, I prove it by all of the bookmarks I have in this book. I mean, and it's not just for our interview purposes this morning. This is actually all the cool stuff I found in this book that I think is going to be of value to me as a keynote speaker. So, hi, Drew, how are you doing today?
I'm great, man. First of all, I'm so honored that you've read the book a bunch of times, and seeing those sticky notes makes me so happy, because that's exactly what we were hoping people would find in this book, like stuff that, helps them today, but also that they want to come back to tomorrow. So it's great, and you made my day.
Well, that's great. Well, that was my goal today. So we can end the conversation now, I guess. We're out. So, Drew, I got to ask, before we really get heavy into the book, why? Why did you and Michael decide to write this book, and the timing? Tell me a little bit about the why and the timing of the book.
Yeah, well, I mean, Michael and I had a conversation about 2 years ago where we were wondering if it was possible to actually find a formula to figure out, how you can build a sustainable speaking career. And we had conversation after conversation about it, and we both had different perspectives. I come at the business with a very kind of data-driven, analytical approach to understanding how the business works, and Michael comes at it from a craft and artistic perspective. And we decided eventually that if we're going to do this, let's figure it out, and with the goal of writing a book. Either way, maybe we'll just find a bunch of things you can learn, but there's no formula, or we'll find a formula. And so I think, the end result is somewhere in the middle. We think we found most of the formula, and there are probably some holes, and we're looking forward to having people like you challenge us with new questions or ideas we didn't even think about when we were writing the book, to try to make the next version of the book better.
Well, it's a very humbling read, if that's the right word to it. I mean, there were times when I'm reading this book and I'm going, oh man, I'm really not that good. And then there's other parts where I'm going, hey, I have hope. So how do you define a referable speaker?
A referable speaker is someone who delivers a transformational experience that constantly generates new business from every single speaking engagement. So a referable speaker is someone who generates stage-side leads that keep their business growing, their revenue increasing, and the opportunities just never end.
Stage-side leads, that's something we're going to talk about here in just a few moments, and I'm looking forward to that part of it. But you and Michael contend that speakers don't just get keynote positions or placement, they actually have to earn it.
Yeah, I think that was a big revelation for a lot of speakers, including myself. I realized with my first few keynotes that the keynotes were a result of a previous speaking engagement where I was in a breakout room, and I still do a lot of breakouts today because, I know that if it's a new fractal, a new audience that has never seen or heard of me before, I've kind of got to earn my way to the bigger and bigger stages. And the goal is to get those audiences that saw me in a breakout session or see you in a breakout session to say that was an amazing session. It should have
Right.
been the keynote. And that's how you earn the keynote stage.
And one of my favorite stories that kind of illustrates that point is you talk about Andrew Pickering and Pete Garland's overnight, and that's in quotes, overnight success, and how they actually achieved that. Could you actually share a little bit about the
Sure.
story of how they earned that coveted keynote placement?
Yeah. Yeah, so Andrew and Pete are two guys from the UK, and they had been speaking for about 5 years with their goal, to get those big keynotes, and they were doing it mostly for free, a couple of, stipends here
Right.
and there, travel included, but they were just not getting those keynote slots, and so they thought it was because they weren't in front of the right audiences. So they spent a ton of their own money. They flew to Cleveland, Ohio for a big conference, and they thought this is going to be my breakthrough moment. They delivered a great session. They got great feedback from the organizer. The audience loved the session, practical takeaways, awesome stuff. And they thought, we're going to get those big keynotes all over the world. And they didn't come in. So after that event, they said something's got to change, and they actually had an event booked. It was the Upreneur Summit in London, 3 months from that day where they realized this wasn't working. And they said, you know what, we've got to scrap what we've been doing. We're going to start over completely from the beginning. And they rehearsed every single day for 3 months,
Wow.
including some of those weekends. And they would revamp stories. They would try to rethink their approach. They would change the speech. Instead of doing a practical speech, they started doing the kind of a visionary, more keynote idea, challenging some conventional wisdom. And they showed up at the Upreneur Summit. They only did one other gig before that, and it was a freebie. They just tried it out to see
Right.
what worked, and they made some adjustments. And at the Upreneur Summit, before the speech had even ended, Jay Baer, who a lot of you are familiar with, Hall of Fame keynote speaker, was in the back of the room getting ready for his keynote at the same event. He pulled out his cell phone and he text messages the organizers of Social Media Marketing World, and he basically said, if you haven't seen Andrew and Pete's new speech, you've got to see it. You should consider them for your keynote in March. They're that good. And that is the moment they became referable speakers. They ended that speech. The Social Media Marketing World called them up about a month later and said, we want you for our keynote. And that's what started the ball rolling. And their fees went from free to, I think they were last quoting, 3 or 4 times their hopeful fee for every keynote. So they wanted 5K, and now they're getting 15, 20, 25K for a keynote.
Yeah, and the moral of the story, at least what I found as the moral of that particular story, is instead of investing hours in the marketing to become a referable speaker, it's more important to invest time in actually the content and the presentation, and the word rehearsal falls in there as well. I mean, it's amazing to me how many people can't wrap their head around the idea that in order to become a referable speaker, or even in a breakout session, that rehearsal is key.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Andrew and Pete, yes, kind of transitioned their focus from marketing themselves as potential keynote speakers to focusing on the performance and delivery of the session. So, so basically Andrew and Pete, rethought their entire approach and focused entirely on rehearsing. And they use a method that I preach and promote a lot called the 5-minute method. Basically, I rehearse every single day. I usually spend about an hour rehearsing. So unfortunately,
Wow.
the 5-minute method is not 5 minutes of rehearsing. It's taking 5 minutes of the speech and just honing that 5 minutes over and over until that 5 minutes just gets better. And I record every single one of my keynotes. It's something or presentations. I recommend everybody do this. You bring your own camera. You don't wait for the recording from the organizer because it takes forever to get those. And I watch it within 24 hours of presenting. And then I find something in that keynote or that session that needs fixing. Just one thing. Maybe sometimes it's only 2 minutes, or sometimes it's 30 seconds. It's just not working. and I rehearse that for 5 to 7 days, just that one thing to make it better. And then I try it again. And, I constantly am cycling that. So every speech is changing, maybe imperceptibly to some of the audience, but for me, it's a big transition usually each time.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think, and I spoke earlier about how reading the book is humbling. Watching a video of yourself in performance, that can also be extremely humbling as well. I mean, I do it. And there are times I go, oh God, what was I doing there? So earlier we were talking about, and I said, well, I wanted to talk more about it, and have a stage side lead. And you say in the book, if you're not generating stage side leads, you're not delivering a referable speech. And you talked a little bit about Jay Beer and being off to the side, or actually watching Andrew and Pete doing the performance, and he texted right away. So defining stage side lead beyond Jay, I mean, is that just
Yeah. No, well, stage side lead is pretty simple. Like essentially the highest quality stage side leads are people that, if it's an in-person engagement, it's the people that come up to you right after you've spoken. Maybe they come up to you stage side, that's why we call them stage side leads. And they say, oh my gosh, Ron, that was an amazing experience. I would love to have you come speak to our organization. I'm the CEO of company X, Y, and Z. We have an event in March in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Are you available? Those 4 things: finding out who the person is, the fact that they have a date in mind, the fact that they've got a location for the event if it's in person, and that they want you to come speak. That's the perfect stage side lead. And setting a goal for the number of stage side leads you want from every event is the best way to measure your effectiveness as a speaker and your referability. So just set a goal. My goal is 4 stage side leads from every single engagement, and I average about 3.2 per engagement. My goal, I'm still striving for 4.
I can't imagine. I've seen your videos. I've seen some of your presentations online. It's like, what are those 0.8 people holding? What's holding them back, Drew? I mean, we got to work on that 0.8 people to get you up to that 4.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing: I measure stage side leads as the leads that I get within 72 hours of an engagement. Wow. So those people, even if I speak to 10,000 people, it's not like I all of a sudden get 1,000 stage side leads, because most people don't have an engagement in mind. I get lots of people that come up, Ron, and say, that was great. We'd love to have you come speak at our company. And when I say, do you have an event in mind? They say, no, not yet, but I'll think about it. Those are leads, but they're not stage side leads in the way that we define them in the book. And stage side leads is what keeps your business moving. That's what actually drives the increase in your fee and the constant sustainability of the business. I've had plenty of events. I had an event organizer reach out to me recently. Their CEO saw me speak 7 years ago. So is that a stage side lead? I mean, I guess technically they saw me speak. They came up afterwards, said, we'd love to have you speak, but I haven't heard from them in 7 years. So I don't count that as a stage side lead for me. It's a new lead, but it's not a stage side lead.
I see. Well, while we're on you, in your book, on page 26 of your book, as a matter of fact, you write a little something about how about your success. It says, if your underlying asset, your speech, is performing well, or we should say is performed well, it will earn interest over time through new leads that you can convert into new gigs. Imagine you reliably generate 4 stage side leads each time you get on a stage, and that kind of defines what kind of has led you to that greater income as well. You were talking about wanting to get 4 stage side leads with each performance, and that sounds like a fair and reasonable practical result, but there's a lot of work behind that. Am I right? Doing all of that?
There is a lot of work. I think being humble enough to accept that the speech is the problem if you're not getting stage side leads is a really tough thing. For me, I try to come up with a new keynote topic every single year, and sometimes it flops, and it's really hard to recognize that after 3 months of hard work and performing it in front of audiences, that I'm just not getting the stage side leads I would need to make this speech a success is hard to swallow. But it's also really helpful to know that I'm only looking at one metric, and I'm not blaming the audience. It's very easy to say, well, that was only 4 executives in a room for a lunch and learn, and they didn't like it, and they were busy and they were on their phones, and that's my fault. I need to figure out how to make sure I keep them engaged and work on the speech to make it better so that I do get the stage side leads I need to make sure this is a viable session. But I find it very liberating to know that I can look at one thing and consistently know whether this is going to work or not. Or if maybe the time has come for this speech. One of my most successful speeches over this past 12 years is called Inspired. And it was a hot speech for 5 or 6 years, but I could pretty quickly tell when the time had passed for that session as I watched the stage side leads start falling off. And still, I do get a few leads every year for that speech, and I still deliver it with some updates, but it's not a sustainable speech anymore.
That's the hard part. I think about for a lot of presenters when we give speeches, is that knowing when it's time to let go. It's hard. Kind of like Elsa in Frozen, let it go.
Let it go. It is. Absolutely.
That in itself again is humbling, but there's a reward to doing all that, and we're going to talk about compounding gigs because, and again, from the book. Quote, compounding gigs leverage the most underappreciated aspect of the speaking business, the referral tree. Now, I found that part of the book particularly enlightening, and I want you to talk about it a little bit, and then I'm going to tell you why I found it, why I thought it was rather enlightening to me, what it did for me.
Yeah, sure. So quickly, compounding gigs are just the gigs that lead to other gigs. So you can, basically, if you get one gig and that leads to 4 stage side leads, you lose or win some of those, and that leads to more. But a referral tree is the map of what gigs led to other gigs. And it turns out that if you map your referral tree, you all of a sudden will find new opportunities for, we call them fractals, little pieces of that tree that look similar to the branch below it, but are a little different, where you can all of a sudden expand your opportunity and get more gigs to grow more, grow a healthier and healthier referral tree. And to me, that's been the key in expanding the opportunity for a speech that might have penetrated an entire market and is falling off. I'm not getting stage side leads anymore there because everybody has seen it, everybody in that little fractal branch of the tree, but all of a sudden there's a new branch that I can open up, or that might be an opportunity for me that I can then expand and deliver essentially the same speech to a brand new audience, even though it's a lookalike audience. How is that for an explanation?
I like it. And you talk about in the book, and I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he's a financial expert.
Dr. Elliott. He's an economist. He's got an amazing referral tree.
And you talk about, how, he was focused on one industry, but then that one industry led to speaking at other industries. And I think even eventually leading to speaking to funeral directors at one point, which I found intriguing. It's like, how did you go from this?
Yes.
That's like a full spectrum jump. But when I read that section, it made me realize, even in my own business, is that when I came from 30 years in the wedding industry. And so when I came out of the wedding industry, it was like, well, do I really want to talk to the wedding industry? I really want to expand my horizons, and I want to talk to small business owners in every industry, because customer experience is what I speak on. And to me, customer experience is universal language. But what I'm discovering is that what I discovered really is that no one in those other industries know who the heck I am. And what I should have been doing in the first place, and I'm hoping that I can make this leap back, is to go back to where I made this revelation about customer experience and how it benefits business, and go back to the wedding industry and hope that through that, then that will lead to those other branches that you talk about. But
you don't have to hope. It's a proven strategy. And I guarantee if you start in a branch on the tree that you can easily get those first gigs from, because you're a trusted or branded name in the industry and people know you.
Right.
Well, you've got to use those, but you've got to make sure you've already got a referable speech before you spend your capital there. Because as soon as they say, well, we've seen Ron and he's good, that's great. But what you need people to say is, oh my gosh, Ron was amazing, and he would be perfect for the DJ industry, and then he would be perfect for not the DJ industry, but dance dance class studios. Right. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're in front of funeral directors. That's how the referral tree works. It really is amazing. And Dr. Elliott, by the way, does 100 gigs a year. He does zero marketing, never has. And I think to quote him in the book, he says, I just wait for the phone to ring.
Yeah. One of my aspirations, well, more power to anybody that wants to speak to the funeral industry. That's not on my list. So it may, who knows? I mean, if all else fails, I may move that up on my list.
Ron, if they start calling, just increase your fee to the point at which you think they might not hire you, and you'll be surprised. If you've got a referable speech, they'll say, well, that's okay. We want you anyway.
Then yeah, that'd be the first time I don't have to worry about dying on stage. All right,
there you go.
But I'm going to add the drum things later into the rim shots. Yeah, I'll add the rim shots
there
later.
You go.
So let's move on. We're in the book, and we're talking about the book. Your research, you research meeting planners. You guys, you and Michael, I think you said you spent like 2 years researching meeting planners, and you discover what are the 3 ways that meeting planners go about finding speakers. What are they?
They're real straightforward. But just to be clear, we didn't do that research that found the top 10 ways. That was Speak Inc. But we did a bunch of other research. So anyway, but the top 3 ways, according to Speak Inc. and their research, the number 1 way is a referral from somebody within the organization who's seen you speak. Okay. The second most viable one is a referral from someone not in the organization who's seen you speak. And the third is a referral from someone who's seen you speak. So it's referrals.
I was just going to say the key word here is that it's all about
referrals.
So that's the primary way that meeting planners are going to go about finding the speakers that they want. So one of the things, and you mentioned it just a few moments ago when you were talking about the economist and how he doesn't market anymore. He just waits for the phone to ring. So my question is, I'm guessing then that all of the clever memes that I post are not going to have any impact on a meeting planner. And the money I spent on, and I meant to bring one out, the one sheet I spent money on, the really cool double-sided one sheet, that's not going to do it. And even I'm amazed. I send emails and I'm not getting responses. What the heck is going on with that?
I think this is one of the biggest misnomers in the speaking business. And I think we've all fallen victim to this myth that, there's a really great outbound strategy or social media marketing or print flyer strategy that's going to get you those gigs. A great sizzle reel isn't the reason you're going to get the gig. The number 1 through 3 reasons you're going to get the gig is because somebody else already saw you speak. And so you've just got to make sure you're focused first on the speech. Now, I just want to be really clear. Can a sizzle reel help sway some other people who are on the fence at an organization that have not seen you speak? Absolutely, right? So let's imagine that the CEO says, I saw Andrew, he was amazing. I would love to have him speak at our event. And they say, that's great. But the other executives in the room say, well, we've never seen him. Do you have a sample? You've got to have something to send, right? They might look at it and say, he seems funny, but is he really that substantive? And the CEO needs to stick up for me, hopefully, and say, yeah, oh my gosh, so insightful, right? So those things will help. And your social media posts, they might help keep you top of mind for that CEO that 7 years from now, wants you. And in fact, that CEO is a subscriber to my email newsletter. So yes, he gets my newsletter. And when the time was right, he was like, oh, we have an event that we would like Andrew to speak at. All of these things help, but they are not the primary driver of a sustainable speaking business. And that's what we were focused on. How do you build a business that is constantly generating new leads and builds you, increases your fee and creates a sustainable speaking career?
So I spoke earlier, and I mentioned it a couple of times how humbling the book is, and so I want to kind of touch on the 4 categories that speakers that meeting planners look for when they're setting up a big event. So we have I'll run through them and I'll let you describe them. So the first category is going to be the actors, athletes, and astronauts.
Yes.
I don't fit into any of those, so that kind of scared me a little bit.
Yes, I don't either. The actors, athletes, and astronauts is pretty straightforward. The Scott Kellys of the world, the Serena Williams of the world, the Will Smiths of the world. Those are the people that fit into that category. If you just hear their name and you know who they are, that's an actor, athlete, and astronaut.
Yeah, I was going to say obviously it's a recognizable name, and then there's the A-list alternatives. That one takes a little bit more explanation.
Yeah, the A-list alternatives are the people where the 4 to 6 words after their name tell you enough to be like, oh, I know. So like, I think some of the examples in the book are like Yancey Strickler. Like, if you don't know who Yancey Strickler is, that's okay. But Yancey Strickler is the founder of Kickstarter. You're like, oh, that's interesting. I'm interested in that. Or a lot of people don't know who Ken Jennings is. Do you know who Ken Jennings is, Ron?
I do, only because of the book. He was the most winning Jeopardy contestant.
That's right. So, or, it could be X, Y, and Z was on The Biggest Loser, or it could be, ABC landed a plane in the Hudson River. Like, a lot of those names you don't recognize, but as soon as you hear the next 4 to 6 words, you recognize it, and they get a lot of credibility for that. That's the A-list alternates.
Okay. All right. So the third category.
Are you an A-list alternate, Ron?
No,
Me neither.
I've not made that. That's why I said it's humbling, because as you're reading through these, and we'll get to the third one here in a second, but as you're reading through there, you're going, why did I pick this question? Yeah, what?
Me too.
But there's a happy ending coming up on the fourth. So third category, industry icons. Who are they? I want to believe I'm an industry icon, but
well, you might be an industry icon in the wedding industry. So like, it's possible that, for a specific industry, you might be the industry icon. Right. The industry icon are the people that in the industry want to hear from, because they've got a position of power or expertise or, or heritage and history that is desperate for you. So for example, I spoke at a convenience store conference, and everybody wanted to hear from the sorry, hold on. I got to remember her name. Sheets, Emily Sheets. Thank you. They wanted to hear from Emily Sheets. Well, I don't know. I didn't know who Emily Sheets was, but she filled the ballroom with 1,000 people because she's the head of innovation for one of the most innovative brands in the world. And she's the daughter of the founder of a company called Sheets, which is a giant convenience store chain that everybody was interested in. She's the industry icon. Or the CEO of Domino's Pizza was there. Same thing. Everybody wants to hear about their innovative, amazing new thing that they're working on. So they show up. So that's the industry icons. I'm not an industry icon either. I mean, maybe in the content marketing fractal on the tree, maybe I'm considered it, but there are definitely bigger and better ones. So, I don't fit there either. And it is very disappointing to realize you're not an actor, an athlete, or an astronaut. You're not an A-list alternate, and you're certainly not an industry icon. Well, maybe I should hang up my hat and we'll just call this done.
Well, I consider you to be an industry icon. So just for what it's worth, I'll put you in that bracket. All right. So this is the one that made me big sigh, because I'm like, oh, thank God. And that was the fourth category, surprise and delight speakers. And well, let's talk a little bit about that. How do you define that surprise and delight speaker?
The surprise and delight speaker is the one who delivers a transformational experience, because they're the perfect combination of entertainment and emotional impact, along with the insight that you need. So let's just break down the first 3 categories as it relates to surprise and delight. Number 1, if you're an actor, an athlete, and an astronaut, it doesn't really matter what you talk about. People are there to see you, and they love the stories, and they're entertained, right? Perfect. Okay. If you're the industry icon, you're going to bring a lot of industry expertise, 0 entertainment factor for the most part, and people are going to be like, that was inspirational. That was who I wanted to hear from. That's great, right? If you're the A-list alternate, it's very similar to the actor, athlete, and astronaut without the big price tag. So they're kind of like the second tier. I can't afford Magic Johnson, so I'll get somebody that was on The Biggest Loser. And they're going to be entertaining. They might be inspirational, but they're certainly not going to deliver any insight that's going to transform the audience's perspective and help them do their business better. That's where surprise and delight hits the mark. So a lot of times, organizers will book for the keynote slots an actor, an athlete, or an astronaut, an A-list alternate, an industry icon, but to bring it all home, to provide the maximum value for the audience, they need a surprise and delight speaker, someone who happens to fill the seats because people are there because they came to see Magic Johnson, and Andrew's up next, and I guess I'm not going to get up in the middle of this and leave. And all of a sudden at the end are saying, oh my gosh, Magic Johnson was so fun, but that guy just blew my mind. It completely transformed my business. That was worth the price of admission. I'm taking a lot away from that.
Well, I think the words that you use, two words that to me it can change a presenter's way of even thinking about. Instead of thinking about writing or presenting a speech, you are, in fact, if you want, especially if you want to be a surprise and delight speaker, you are providing a transformational experience. And those two words, to me, are extraordinarily powerful. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, that changes, that's a way of changing your thinking. If you think of it in those two terms, rather than, oh, I got to write a speech for this group, or I'm doing a presentation for this group. No, you're wanting to touch hearts, touch minds, change minds. You're wanting to deliver something that makes them say, and you don't really think about it in the speaking industry a whole lot. You want them to say, wow, wow. You know,
Exactly. You want them to say, wow, you got it.
You want them to say, wow.
Yeah, I think when you're providing that kind of experience, you are really leaving a legacy that is what I believe most speakers are trying to do or want to do, right? We have a message to share. We're trying to change minds, transform people's lives or businesses, and help them leave a legacy in the same way we want to. And, it was kind of a revelation as we were writing the book that it is this perfect combination of entertainment and insight that is what provides a transformational experience. Everybody walks away saying, wow, but oh my gosh, my perspective has shifted.
Right, exactly. So in the end, and this comes from the book again, in the end, don't these all boil down to where a speaker fits in the F plus E factor, the fee factor.
Factors, that's
they
right.
have to be, so if you're the astronaut, athletes, and actors, and you fall into the famous category. I guess everybody could fall into the
absolutely.
The E is, and I should have said FEE stands for famous, entertaining, and expertise. So famous could be just about any of the people on that A list, and then entertaining, and then of course there's expertise. So so how do we, what are some examples, or do we have examples beyond those that we just talked about?
I mean, I would challenge everybody watching to do this for themselves, because, basically your fee and your referability is tied to all three.
Right.
So, think of it as a sliding scale. Every one of them is a sliding scale. And, on one side for fame, you have Will Smith famous. And on the other side of fame, you have no one knows my name, right?
Okay, exactly.
Well, everybody fits into that scale somewhere. And so if you're working with an event organizer who says, last year I hired Clint Huft, he was awesome. You now know that Clint Huft is on their spectrum of famous. So now you can ask yourself, am I more famous for this industry than Clint Huff? Or am I less famous? That's good. That's going to help you determine your fee, how viable this event is going to be for you. So just think of just comparing yourself to one other speaker. So that's F, fame, right? The next category is entertainment. And entertainment has a bunch of sub-factors just like fame does. We won't get into those probably right now, but they're in the book. But entertainment, let's just pick one. Does Clint deliver a more reliable experience than you, or less reliable? Reliable delivery is really important to event organizers, because they want to know that, they had Clint last year, and let's say I was a referral from Clint, and I'm like, oh, we're going to have Clint at another event this year. I want the same or similar speech I saw Clint do before. I don't want a whole new speech, because that's a liability for an event organizer. Right. They don't want you to over customize it. They were like, I loved you then. Don't change much. Okay, we want Clint again. So reliable delivery. Now, if you, Ron, were more of a reliable delivery than Clint, because Clint changes it every time, then you score a little higher, and you know that you can offer that as a way to convince them that you're going to be great. The last one is expertise factor. And expertise factor, just to be clear, is very different than fame factor. Expertise factor is the perception of your expertise in the industry you're in. So, I don't know what Clint speaks about. What does Clint speak about, Ron?
He speaks, I believe, on weddings, if I'm not mistaken. Clint is an officiant in the wedding industry.
Got it. An officiant in the wedding. Okay, so you
Joy.
both are in the wedding industry. So okay, Joy. All right, great. So let's say you're speaking about Joy, Clint, and you're like the foremost expert in the industry. Even though maybe you're not famous, you've written a bunch of books. Maybe they're textbooks or something, but that makes you the most foremost. Well, you're going to score really high. Meanwhile, Ron's going to score really low in that expertise area. No offense, Ron. Yeah. But anyway, at the end of the day, you can take these fee factors for yourself, compare them to any other speaker, and determine a bunch of things like how much should you charge? How likely is this audience going to be to listen to or hear your message or to attend? How likely is it this organizer is going to fit you into the agenda? And then you can even use all the sub factors to help build an argument to help them get you to their event. I went really deep there. Sorry.
Well, no, that's fine. And you have to, in a way, go really deep. One of the beauties of buying the book or getting the book is not only do you get the book, but they actually provide you with the scales.
The scales are there. Yes, absolutely.
To see how you fit. But the main thing out of all this also is you have to be honest as to where I thought I was famous and a transformational performer, and visionary leader, and my wife said, not so much.
Yeah, it is true. Look, it's really hard to be objective and honest with yourself. Yeah. And the only way to do that is to, really spend some time consuming other people's content as well. And being humble enough to say, I can be better than myself. I can do this better next time. I've learned something by watching that person or seeing what they did.
So there's more to this, and unfortunately, we're going to. I promised those of you that are watching with us live, you're welcome to post your questions in the chat. We are going to try to get to those. So I'm not going to. Pardon me. All of a sudden, I've lost my voice.
That's all right.
There are more to talk about in the way of fame. You have fame factors, worldly fame, domain fame, fractal fame, which we talked about a little bit. With all those branches. The one thing I did want to touch on a moment, and I think it falls under the entertainment or expertise, factor? The one about not having to customize.
Yes.
I want to dwell on that just for a moment longer, because that seems to be a big thing. I mean, even I'm guilty of that, saying, I will customize my speech to fit your thing. And that's not, but what you're saying is that that's not what the meeting planners want. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So we call it the paradox of customization. The truth is they want it to be relevant to the audience that you're presenting to. But imagine you're an event organizer sitting in the audience, or you're a CEO at that event, right? And let's say you're the CEO of, let's say you're at a wedding industry event, but you're the CEO of the Funeral Directors Association who have to be invited there as a guest. I don't know. This is my scenario for the day. Now, if I'm sitting there and I'm saying, wow, Ron is amazing, but I don't know if he can be relevant to funeral directors, because this is all about weddings and stuff. And I can see a few nuggets that would be great, but I'm not going to invite him, right? If it's the inverse, where they're like, wow, Ron, 90% of Ron's message would work for my audience. It's just those few bits that are about the wedding industry that I think we would need to change. And maybe he can do that for the funeral directors. That's when you've got a winning combination. So, a lot of speakers have gotten to the point where they're talking about and marketing the fact that we can customize everything for you. Well, you're doing yourself a disservice in your ability to prove that you can reliably deliver a top 10 unbelievable transformational experience for every audience. And that undermines your credibility and your ability to be a referable speaker.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And that's, again, changing the book changes your way of thinking. That's another star for the book.
Yay.
All right. So one other thing I want to touch on, and it falls under the entertainment factor, and that's signature bit.
Yes.
I love that concept. Everybody, and you use one of the examples, and I actually saw the guy, and I'm trying to remember his name. Do I have it on my notes? Justin Lapley.
Oh, Justin Lapley.
The evolution, and most people, again, going back to, do you know who this is? Well, the four things that follow. He's the evolution of dance guy. And I actually saw him at a conference several years ago. But not only that, you talk about not just his video being watched like a gazillion times, but that started a trend across the country for talent shows, weddings. They were doing these things.
Yes.
We were, as a wedding entertainment professional, I was actually doing mixes as surprise dance routines that people could do as a first dance or a father-daughter dance or whatever. So, but this is an example of a signature bit. Let's talk about the value of that. What does that mean?
So the signature bit is essentially the 5 to 7 minutes of your speech that is entertaining, but also delivers the power one point that gives the insight that people needed from the speech. And more importantly, it's the 5 to 7 minute segment of the speech that people talk about. And when it comes to referability, we've got to get people talking to other people about the speech. And so the signature bit is a crucial element in ensuring that your speech is referable. And the more, the more entertaining and insightful your signature bit is, the more likely you're going to get more stage side leads as a result of that. It's kind of like the X factor of a speech. There's no formula for coming up with a signature bit. We have a lot of examples in the book. Judson Lapley's is a great example. And a lot of people don't know, Ron, by the way, this is a spoiler alert for the book, and I know you know this, but I didn't know it. Judson Lapley, that Evolution of Dance video was actually his signature bit from his speech that he recorded and was put on YouTube, and that's what made him YouTube famous. So that's his signature bit, and it still is to this day for his most booked speech.
Well, I can imagine an audience being disappointed if he didn't perform it. I mean,
it's like your greatest hits, right?
That's his finale, if I'm not mistaken, is it not?
It is his finale,
And then to toot your horn for you, I've fallen in love with it's one of your signature bits. I don't imagine it's your only signature bit, but if for those of you watching, go to YouTube and search Andrew Davis Meatloaf. It's an 8-minute video, I believe, which is
something like that.
Just blows me away. It has to do with how people search on the internet, and it's an amazing journey that you take the viewer on, and I got to tell you that's an awesome signature bit in and of itself. So here's the deal:
thanks.
we are running really. Oh, let me do a couple of things. Well, wait a minute, we're running a little short on time. So as another teaser, I came prepared to talk about Expert Town and Visionaryville, and you all are probably looking at these gummy bears thinking, what the heck does this have to do with anything? But it does. But unfortunately, we're running out of time. So this is a tease. I did an interview with Drew last year. We did an interview, and we talked specifically about this. Go to my website, ronruth.com, and in the blog, just search for Andrew Davis, and you will find where we talk. But unfortunately, I didn't have the
big one
back then. Yeah, and it's taken everything I have through this whole conversation not to do this, and now I know
I'm jealous.
It was probably a bad idea now. So
that's so awesome, Ron. You're the best. So we'll do something special for Kansas City. So, but thank you. This has been really fun.
Okay, so to get the book, you can go to the referrablespeaker.com.
Yeah,
that's one way of getting it. And here, a couple of cool things about the book, and then I'm going to get to Q&A. First, there's a surprise. There is a value in the book that basically returns every dime that you invested in the book. I'll go ahead and tell you. You get a free book. If you can share this book with a friend, an ebook, and you can share information, and that way you have somebody that you can talk to. And Steve Iverson is my book buddy, and we've actually had a couple of conversations about the book. There are also I still haven't swallowed.
That's like gummy bear. Don't choke.
So lesson learned: don't ever eat a gummy bear on camera. It's like peanut butter. Inside the book, you'll get links to rehearsal strategy. You get links to, there's a number of links in here to different things that will be a benefit to you. So it's not just buy the book. They actually give away a ton more information than what's in the book. So for that, Drew, before I get to Q&A, how can people get a hold of you if they would like to talk to you?
Oh, you can. The easiest way is find me on LinkedIn as a speaker. I'm there fairly often. It's one of my go-to places. So connect with me on LinkedIn. Shoot me a note. You can also find me on YouTube. I do a weekly video series called The Loyalty Loop, where I just actually talked about the marketing strategy for the book. So if you want to look that up, just look up Andrew Davis Loyalty Loop. You'll find it on YouTube. Those are the two easiest ways, probably. So probably those.
And like I said, look, go to his YouTube page is phenomenal. I mean, just
Thanks.
and actually, there's a great video on there on how they went about marketing the book without spending any money, which I found fascinating as well.
It's
so
fun.
I was looking, and evidently you and I were just so thorough in our discussion.
No.
Nobody has any questions.
No questions.
No, I know. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. Other than the referable keynote speech, what is your advice on positioning yourself to meeting planners at the surprise and to meeting planners as the surprise and delight speakers?
Stephen, other than the referable speech, like other than that, having them see you and then realizing that you're a surprise and delight speaker, I'm sure you could out and out say you're a surprise and delight speaker, but I have a feeling after the book came out, a lot of speakers were already saying that. For me, great speaker marketing is about showing instead of telling. So if you can find a way to send them something, a video clip or something that shows you are a surprise and delight speaker, that's like a signature bit section or something where they're like, wow, that was impactful, it changed my mind, and it was entertaining. You're getting to that transformational experience that people can see. But I know, Stephen, you've read the book, but I think whenever you're trying to position yourself to a meeting planner, instead of thinking about how can I change the speech so that more meeting planners contact me, you're kind of falling back into that marketing mindset. And look, I'm a marketing guy, right? I'd rather market my way into an event, but it's much more effective to speak my way into an event. Right. So I don't know. I hope that helps, Stephen.
Well, he said excellent advice.
Oh, good. Oh, awesome.
You did. So I know that you're on a time schedule because you got lots of people to talk to in regards to this. So again, Drew, thank you so much for your time. I'd share these with you if I could, but yeah, I know. But unfortunately, they're not going to happen. So Drew, thank you so much again. I wish you and Michael Port the best of luck with the book. For those of you that have been watching live, thank you for joining me. Bob Dewson, thank you for producing the show. And to everyone else, thank you. See you some other time. Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, guys.